So, for the paper that we are sharing today, it is 42 May June 2020. So your first task in the question 1A is to divide 24 in the ratio of 7:5. So as per usual, the first thing you need to do is to find the total ratio by adding 7 and 5 up. Okay, you will get 12. So take the 24 multiply 7 over 12, you should get 14. And when you take 24 multiply with 5 over 12, you should get 10. So 14 to 10 will be the results after dividing 24 according to the ratio given. So for the next part, just divide 24.6 with 2870, and then to the lowest term, your calculator will generate the answer of 3 over 350. As for part 3, 1.92 as a percentage of 1.6. Just take 1.92 divided by 1.6 and then multiply it by 100. The results that you should be getting will be 120%. And for part B, number 1, price was reduced by 15%. So this means that from the original price, okay, I said it's 100%. After minusing 15% from it, you should get 85%. So 12 multiplied with 85%, you get 10.2 as your final answer. As for price number 2, okay, so has a sales price of 38.25. So this follow the discount rate from the front. So original price multiplied with 85%, you get it as 38.25. So for original price, after taking 38.25 divided by 85%, it should be 45, which is the original price of this jacket here. Question C, number 1. So keyword here is simple interest, and they are looking for the interest earned only. So simple interest formula will directly generate the results. So all you need to do is to fill up the information. So 500 times 10 times 1.7%, you should get 85. As for part number 2, Ollie invested 200 at a rate of 0.0035% per day, compound interest. So the additional information given here is the numbers of the days. So it's actually 365 days. So all you need to do is to take 200 multiply with 100% plus 0.0035% and then make it to the power of 365. So through this calculation, you will get 202.6. So the major difference between this and whatever compound interest formula that you did earlier or previously is this time around they compounded by days. Okay, same thing, they can assess you on compound by week and also compound by month. So please be careful about it. So for part number 3, Ida invested 500 at a rate of R%. At the end of 6 years, you will get 559.78. So this is the typical question that I was mentioning earlier, but the twist here is to identify the rate. So you take 559.78 divided by 500, okay, and take the entire results, and then you put a root of 6 on top of it. So minus 100% and then convert it into percentage by multiplying 100. So you will get 1.9% from this calculation here. Part 2, okay, all you need to do is to substitute the information. So 2 being multiplied into 4 and 5 and then added with bracket -2, 7. So after the 2 multiplied with the brackets, you should get 8, 10, and it was being added with -2, 7. So the final result should be 6, 17, and please do not treat this as a fraction. If you include the additional line at the center, you would not earn any marks from it. So for part 2, okay, whenever you saw this two line like a modulus function, all you need to do is to incorporate your Pythagoras theorem. So square root of 4 squared plus 5 squared, you get square root 41. And the final answer from it will be 6.4. As for part B, A is the point 4, 1, and A to B is negative 3, 1. So this A, B with a direction on the top is actually your translation. So whatever that was at the top part will be your changes in X, and whatever at the bottom will be your changes in Y. So by taking 4 minus by 3, you get 1, and then 1 plus 1, you will get 2. So your final coordinate, 1, 2. The line y equals to 3x minus 2 crosses y-axis at G. So the key information here is that it crosses y-axis. So whenever you have a point that crosses y-axis, you will have an x coordinates of 0. So substitute x equals to 0 into the equation, you get your y equals to negative 2. So your final answer for this will be 0, negative 2. Question D. Okay, I fill up the information on OC first. OC is actually your C, and OD will be D, but I didn't straight away fill it up because I'm yet to complete the calculation. So based on the information, they say that OT equals to 2TD. I know that the entire thing can be broken down into 3 parts. Okay, OD is actually 3TD basically, because I gotten this information from the OT equals to 2TD. So since OD is D, after you run the calculation, your TD is actually 1 over 3D. So remember to label the direction, because changes in it, we have to add negative. So when they say OT, it's actually twice TD's amount, so it will be 2 over 3D. So step 2 here, they're asking for position vector of M, but before we gotten from origin to M, we still have to identify TC first, because based on the information, they only mention about M is actually the midpoint of TC. So anyhow, we have to identify the entire TC's value and divide it by half in order to get the information from T to M. So to do that, TC will be going through TO plus OC. So TO now will be changed into negative 2 over 3D because there's a changes in direction. So OC itself is C, and you just fill it up, and then TM is actually 1 over 2 of TC. So multiply 1 over 2 into everything, you get negative 1 over 3D plus 1 over 2C. So for your answer for OM itself, it will be going through OT plus TM. OT is 2 over 3D plus bracket negative 1 over 3D plus 1 over 2C. Your final answer for this will be 1 over 3D plus 1 over 2C. As for question 3, as per usual, my standard practice when I saw intervals will be identifying the midpoint first. So you get 10, 30, 42.5, 47.5, 55, and 70. For those who is curious that how did I gotten this information, all I did was to taking the 0 plus 20 and then divide it by 2. So you repeat all the same steps for the respective interval. And part A, they are looking for mean. So all you need to do is to take the midpoint that you identified, multiply with their frequency, okay, add them all up, and then remember to divide it by 200 because there was 200 cars that was there. So after the calculation, you should get 41.4 as the final result. For V less than equals to 45, all you need to do is to take 50 plus 62. And for V less than equals to 50, we'll be taking 112 plus 58. then you should be able to construct this cumulative frequency diagram shown over here. So for you to calculate the upper quartile, all you need to do is to take 200 cars, multiply with 75%, means that for your upper quartile, it will be located at the 150th. So from 150, you trace it back down, it should be 48 kilometers per hour. And for numbers of cars with a speed greater than 35 kilometers per hour, all you need to do is from 35, from V part, okay, trace it back up, you'll get it as 38. So 200 minus 38. For part C, 2 of the 200 cars were chosen at random. Okay, find that both of them has a speed greater than 50 kilometers per hour. So the cumulative frequency is 170. So I gotten this through the cumulative frequency that we identified earlier. Okay, so 200 minus 170, you know that only 30 cars could go exceeded the 50 kilometers per hour. So 30 over 200 times 29 over 199. So these are the things. When it comes to selection process, please remember the rules of this applies here, where after each selection, it will be removed from the total pool that you have. So you read 87 over 3,980. As for part D, okay, construct the histogram to show the information in this table. So for frequency density, okay, it is actually the height. So good things about this question here is that they didn't give you additional information, like one of the interval after the frequency density calculation, it is X centimeters. So they didn't give you that. So all you need to do is to just plug in the original formula. So all I did was to take the frequency divided by the class interval. Class interval is by taking the 40 minus by 0, 50 minus by 40, and also 80 minus by 50. So sub in their respective frequency, you should get your results as 1.25, 12, and 1. So this will be the final answer. As for question 4, calculate QR. Okay, QR here we can actually identify it through cosine rule, where QR square equals to PQ square plus PR square minus 2 multiplied with PQ multiplied with PR and cosine RPQ. So this is a standard formula, nothing tricky about it. After you substitute, remember to add in a square root to cancel off the squared effect. So your final answer should be 65.4. As for the last one, okay, additional calculation is required because total interior angle of a triangle is by taking 180 minus 55 minus 45. Then you get a balance of 80. So you substitute your sine rule into it. Sine PSR over PR equals to sine SPR over SR. After the cross multiplication, you will get your RS or SR value as 124.77. As for part C, they are looking for total area of these two triangles. Okay, since they are both irregular triangles and they gave you angles and also sides value of the triangle, I will be using the shortcut formula that goes by half AB sine C for this calculation. So I substitute them into the respective place. You should get 10,420. If you were to correct it to three significant figures, you can leave it as 10,400 as well. So since they didn't specify and I wanted to be exact or accurate, I just leave it as it is, which is 10,420.49. As for question 5, find the bearing of D from B. Okay, so the first thing that I added to the graph was the 90 degree over there that you see. So how did I know it is actually 90 degree? It's actually hidden in the information where C is due east of M and D is due north of C. So this statement here tells us that it's a flat line where it will form a right angle. Okay, so this is the reason why I added a 90 degree over there. So since I know that it is a right angle triangle, I can identify the degree information first. So tangent DBC equals DC over BC, I gotten 52.1. But this is actually not what they wanted, because they wanted the bearing of D from B itself. So I took 90 minus 52.1, you get the answer as 37.9. But if you were to leave this answer this way, your total marks will be deducted, because the information here is actually less than 100. So you need to add 0 at the front, which translates into 037.9. So part B, calculate the distance from D to A. So this thing here, we'll be using Pythagoras theorem to identify BD's information first. Okay, BD's information is by taking the square root of 350 meters square plus 450 square. We actually get 570 meters from it. And then you can proceed with the calculation of angle ABD. So angle ABD here, okay, if you took a look at the graph that I illustrated over there, I draw the 90 degree on the right hand side twice, which form a 180 straight line. And then I use alternate angle theorem, where I transfer the 140 degree down. So through this, you will know that the balance of the top there will be 52.1 plus 90 plus 140, and you take the 360 minus this results here. So it will be 77.9, and for you to calculate distance of D to A, you can now utilize the cosine rule to do so. So a little bit tricky, that's why they leave us a lot of space for you to write down all the details. So this will be it on how did I identify the distance of D to A. You can use any other equivalent methods that you wanted. So that didn't actually specify that you must follow this way to secure the full marks. As for part C, Jonas runs around the field A, B, B, C, C, D, D, A. He runs at a speed of 3 meters per second. So calculate the total time required. So I took 400 plus 350 plus 450 plus 624. And then he runs at the speed of 3 meters per second. So for us to find the time, we'll be taking distance divided by speed. So you actually get 608 seconds, and this will translate into 10 minutes, okay, and 2 over 15. But this 2 over 15 here, since they wanted the exact value, those cannot be included. Then you have to multiply another 60 to convert it into seconds. So your final answer should be 10 minutes and 8 seconds. As for question 6, okay, this is just a function. So now, when you look at A there, h bracket 4, basically your x is now being replaced by 4. So when you substitute in, it'll be 4 to the power of 4, which translates into 256. As for part B, as per usual, solve the either part first. So you look at function g with the x value substituted by 1. So 1 square plus 1 will be 2. Then only you substitute this 2 as your x of function y. So it will be 3 bracket 2 plus 2, which translates into 8. As for c here, g f x in the form of a is x squared plus bx plus c. So your fx is now no changes to it, so you just substitute the entire thing in. It will be 3x plus 2, and this 3x plus 2 here will be your new x. Hence you saw me putting bracket 3x plus 2 bracket square plus 1. After expanding it by adding and added it by 1, it will be 9x squared plus 12x plus 5. As for part D, find x when function fx equals to g7. So as per usual, I find g7 first. You will get 7 squared plus 1 equals to 50. Then function fx equals to 50. So your fx here is actually 3x plus 2. 3x plus 2 equals to 50. Your 3x will be 48 and x will be 16. As for the last part, finding function inverse, 3 steps formula that I shared over and over again. Let's do it here. So first thing, I copy down the question and get rid of the function by replacing it with y. So now all you have is y equals to 2x plus 2. So this is the first step. Followed by swapping x and y. So swapping means whatever that was originally x will now be written as y, and whatever that was originally y will be written as x here. So it will be x plus 2y plus 2. Rearrange them and identify your new y, because your new y here will be our function inverse. So after the calculation, you should get x minus 2 over 2 as your function f's inverse. As for part F, slightly tricky. Please take note that so after you substituted function g and function f, remember to add it by x. So the x will have a denominator of 1, and then by putting them into the same denominator, you should get your answer as x squared plus 1 plus x bracket 3x plus 2. So after expanding it, you should get 4x squared plus 2x plus 1 over 3x plus 2. And for g, okay, I'll be using logarithm to get this done, because it is the most efficient way that I can think of. So hx equals to 4 to the power of x. As per usual, change the function h into y, swap their position, then I rearrange it into log with a base of 4, and then the results of x and up equals to y. So through this, you know that your h inverse will be log 4x, and log 4x equals to 2, 4 to the power of 2 equals to x, and your x results will be 16. So you might get confused by all the steps taken here. So I actually have a logarithm explanation video, and you just have to watch the first 3 minutes, I think. So that will get you covered, and you should be able to solve all the indices question in your mathematics level. So this is actually a method that additional mathematics students use most of the time, and it is the most efficient and fast way to solve this question. Question 7. Find the probability that the flowers are not red or not yellow. So all you need to do is to take the total probability of 1 minus 0.6 minus 0.3. You will get 0.1. So when you fill up the space, okay, only 0.8 will produce flower, which means there is 1 minus 0.8 equals to 0.2. So this 0.2 of the seeds will not produce any flowers. So out of those who produce flowers, they mentioned that red is 0.6, yellow is 0.3, and the last one, other colors, will be 0.1 that we identified earlier. Find the probability that a seed chosen at random will produce red flowers. So first, it must be able to produce flowers. Hence, you saw me multiplying 0.8 at the front, followed by the probability of getting a red, which is 0.6. So through this, you will get 12 over 25, which translates into 0.48. As for part 3, Tanya chooses a seed at random. Find that the seeds does not produce any red flowers and does not produce any yellow flowers. So please take note that since they say that they chose a seed that does not produce, okay, remember to add the 0.2 followed by the situation where it did grow, but whatever that it grew wasn't red nor yellow. So you have two scenarios here. One is didn't grow and it grows but turned out to be different color. So we have 0.2 added with 0.8 times 0.1. Your final answer for this will be 0.28. As for part E, two seeds were chosen at random, flowers with no flowers, added with no flowers and flowers. So 0.8 times 0.2 plus 0.2 times 0.8. The reason why I do this is that they didn't specify, like the first seeds must be flowers, then followed by does not produce flowers. If they didn't specify, it means that the arrangement matters. Hence, you have to list down all the possible scenario for this question here. As for question 8a, okay, so this is assessing you on mathematically similar concept. So I know that AB equals to square root of area ABC and PQ over square root of area PQR. However, because the method that I'm using here is the comparison method, the area part I'm required to square root it. Okay, so you will get 8 over square root 16 equals to 12 over square root of PQR. To get rid of the square, I'm required to square the results after the arrangement. So I'm squaring 12 times square root 16 over 8. After it was being squared, you get 36 as the final answer. As for part 2, okay, they gave us the volume of the smaller prism is 320. Okay, but this doesn't help at all because they're looking for the length of the large prism. So some thinking is required where you take the area, okay, multiply the length equals to 320. So through this calculation, you will know the length of the small prism is actually 20. So comparing the side, which is 8 over 20 equals to 12 over unknown. So after the calculation, you get this as 30 centimeters. So this is the most effective way to solve this part A number 2 here. As for part B, a cylinder with a radius of 6 cm and a height of h has the same volume of a sphere with a 4.5 radius. So pi r squared times h equals to 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Substitute the radius and height information for the cylinder and the radius of the sphere. After the rearrangement, you should get 27 over 8, which translates into 3.375. If you were to correct it to 3 significant figures, it will be 3.38. As for part C, a metal cube has 20 cm, okay, and it was made into 40 solid sphere. Calculate a radius of r. So please, the key information is hidden in the word cube. So cube will have all side length, width, height with the same information, which is 20 here. So the first step that I took was to multiply 20 by 20 and 20. You will get 8,000 centimeters cube, and this can be split into 40 times 4 over 3 times pi times r cube. So your r equals to 8,000 over 40 times 4 over 3 times pi, and then remember to cube root the results. So through this, you will get 3.63 as your final answer. As for part D, a solid cylinder has a radius of x cm and a height of 7x over 2. The surface area of a sphere with a radius of r cm is equals to the total surface area of the cylinder. Find an expression for r in terms of x. So surface area of a cylinder will be taking 2 multiplied with pi r squared because of the top and bottom. And you have 2 pi r, which is a curved surface area, multiplied with the height. So after substituting the x and 7x over 2, you will get it as 2 pi x squared plus 7 pi x squared, which is 9 pi x squared. So this 9 pi x squared here will be equals to your 4 pi r squared. And after the rearrangement and substitution of the r, the capital R there, you should get your r equals to square root of 9x squared over 4, which translates into 3x over 2. So this is considered the second hardest question here in this paper. So if you're able to understand this, basically you have a strong foundation in your algebra. As for question 9, write it in the form of x plus k bracket square plus h. So this is completing the squares. Then as per usual, I'm comparing 2ab with 8x. Our a will be x, so after the substitution, your b will be 4. So your b here is actually your k. So we got x plus 4 bracket square minus with 9. This 9 minus 9 is actually the integer that we didn't use earlier. And remember to minus another 4 square from it, because in the formula, a plus b bracket square, after it was being expanded, we actually added b square into it. So we are required to minus it off at the last step. So through this, you will get it as negative 25 that represented h value. So you will get x plus 4 bracket square minus 25. So if you need further information on this completing the square, feel free to check out the revision guide, because I already make a video specifically explain about this. As for part 2, using for your information from part 1, solve this. So substitute the x plus 4 bracket square minus 25 and then put it equals to 0. After the rearrangement, you should get your x plus 4 equals to plus minus 5. So when x plus 4 equals to positive 5, you get your x value as 1. And when your x plus 4 equals to negative 5, you should get your x value as negative 9. So part B here, find your value of B and C. So I rearranged this using the quadratic formula on the x squared plus bx plus c. After putting them into the respective space, you know that your a is 1. So everything that was a over there will be removed. So negative b will be compared to 7. So you know that your b is actually 7. And for you to find c, I took b squared minus 4ac equals to 61. So the b squared is actually 7 squared minus 4, 1 multiplied with c equals to 61. After the rearrangement, you should get your c as negative 3. So here comes the hardest question of this paper. In my perspective, this is C number 1 here. They wanted you to sketch out these two function graph. Okay, so as per usual, I'm setting when x equals to 0 and y equals to 0 on the first equation. So when x equals to 0, my y will be 1, and when y equals to 0, my x will be 1. So with this, I can roughly sketch out that it is a U-shaped curve that is upwards sloping. Then for part B, when I substitute y equals to 0, my x will be -2, and when I substitute x equals to 0, my y will be 1. So after I join these two up, you'll notice that you have two intersections, which is A and B. So A's coordinates, we know that is 0, 1. Okay, so for you to find B's coordinates, this is where the two curves intercept, right? So I will be taking x minus 1 bracket square equals to 1 over 2x plus 1. So through this, you will get your results as x squared minus 5 over 2x equals to 0. I extracted x out from it. You will get x minus 5 over 2 as the balance. So x will be equals to 0 and x equals to 5 over 2. So when x equals to 5 over 2, y equals to 1 over 2 times 5 over 2 plus 1. So your y value will be 9 over 4. So B's coordinates will actually be 5 over 2 plus 9 over 4. And using the length of the coordinates formula, you get your final answer as 2.8. So the main assessment here for this question is for you whether you can identify B effectively or not. So please take note that if they did intercept with each other, you just have to put them equals to each other and find the x value. So I didn't use the x equals to 0 because I already know A's exact coordinate is 0, 1. So for the last question here at 10a, okay, substituted -1 into x position, you get y's value as 5. And find the two stationary points. So as I mentioned earlier, stationary point means your dy dx equals to 0. Okay, after you differentiate them, you will get 4x cubed minus 12x squared. And from this, when you factorize, you should get 4x squared bracket x minus 3. So your x will be 0 and 3 respectively. So when your x is 0, substitute it back into y, you get y as 0 as well. So both will be 0, 0. And for next one, when your x is 3, you get your y as -27. So part B, they wanted you to find that the value of P and Q. So I took the original formula. Okay, I bring out the power there. So you have P being brought out multiplied with 1. So it is still P. And then the x to the power of P minus 1. As for next one, we have 2 multiplied with Q. X to the power of Q minus 1. So when you compare, you will know that P equals to 11 and 2Q will be equals to 10. So Q's value will be 5. So overall, paper 42 wasn't that hard, but there's 3 tricky questions hidden here. So if you have friends that are struggling to solve this, feel free to share this video to them. And I wish you all the best in your upcoming examination. Thank you.